Okay, this is the part 2 I promised, going through the setup of the FLsun T1 Pro. Just to say up front, as I try to do, this printer was sent to me without charge, and it's for the purpose of letting me give my own opinion as to what I think about this printer, its ease of putting together, printing with it, and overall general thoughts. The opinions here are my own, and FLsun did understand that before sending it that I would not take any direction as to what they'd like me to say, so everything here is my own thoughts. Anyway, so as we saw in the last, we got the printer put together. We did a quick power on just to make sure it booted up and got to the first screen, and that's where we're going to pick up from. So let's go ahead and turn it on, and I'll bring this a bit down where we can see the screen. I just heard the motors come to life. I can see there's nice little indicators on the end stops, but we'll go through that in a bit. Okay, so there's our thing, and I'll just focus on that. Right, so yeah, already selected for English. Region, I guess UK would still be classed, sadly, as European. I shouldn't say sadly, but you know, it wasn't my choice for us to leave the EU, but there we are. So just make sure it's selected on that, because it's not one of the other regions. There we go. And I've got a temporary little one set up, and this is where you're not getting to see this part, because I'm doing the Wi-Fi password. Okay, and obviously there's our Wi-Fi password inserted. Join. Let's see if it gets it. Yes. Okay, so we have connection. That looks like good. We got a nice little tick. That's a weird one. And it gives us our IP, so that's fine. I'll just 5.157. Let's just make a quick note of that so I don't forget. 5.157. And I'll have to remind myself to add a static IP for that in my router. That's something I actually recommend for people, is to, if you have the ability to log into your router and reserve an IP address, definitely do that, because it's beneficial to make sure the printer always gets the same IP. This way you can bookmark it on your browser and so forth. Okay, so next. Okay, now this is where we have the FLsun World app. That's going to be fun because I'm recording. So I'm going to go ahead and try and pick this up by doing a screen record on my phone. Here we go with the FLsun World app, which you can get from the Play Store or the App Store if you have an iPhone. So we're going to install that. Pretty straightforward. And then open. Okay, FLsun, agree and accept. Now I'm just going to pause this while I put in my details to create an account. Okay, now I finished it. It basically went to another screen when you hit sign up. Ask you your email, choose a password, they send you a verification code, and that's that. And then obviously when you enter that and agree to the terms and conditions, then it brings you here. And I assume this is where we do this part. So add a device. And it's T1 Pro. Yes, we did that. Scan QR code. We'll do that like that. There we go. Nice little beep. Start binding. Happy days. And this is where I think I can go ahead and go back to the setup. Okay, here's where we continue on. Yes, I'm blotting out the account number that they're showing because I'm going to change it anyway. If you want to know what it is once I've set up, give me a shout. Okay, so privacy policy, which they do seem to give you the ability to read, although awkward. I think this is the same one that we found in the app, so if you've read it, then there we go. Next. And there we are. That's the basic get us up and running thing. So let's grab the user guide and see what their recommended steps are. Oh, okay. Here we go. New version already. So let's go ahead and do that. Optimize the material. Here we go. Hold on. There we go. Optimize the material withdrawal logic to solve the occasional material jamming. It doesn't let me... Oh, there we go. Bit awkward. Optimize the issue of inaccurate heated bed temperature during leveling after canceling a print. Optimize problem that the Wi-Fi may not automatically reconnect. Okay. Optimize the occasional use of abnormal connection when the power is cut. Optimize layer lines for printing resumption after a power outage. Okay, that's interesting. So they clearly have something to do there. Definitely got my curiosity. And then optimize issue of occasional error messages appearing. To upgrade process, added a small boat model made of ordinary PLA in the consumables in the built-in models. Nice. Okay. Okay, so let's do the update. So update now. This is where it will download the latest firmware upgrade. And then we'll move to the next stages. That's going pretty quickly. Thank you, fast broadband. Now, I was going to try to get this one with a little less fan noise in the background, but it seemed that the high-speed PLA I wanted to test with instead of the sample that they give you, which really doesn't seem like it has enough to really put it through its paces. So I've pulled out a spool that was already open, and I've got it in the dryer just as a good process for that. Okay, so it's going to update. So I'm just going to pause this while it finishes that update. Oh, maybe not. Haha, that's going quick. Little drink of the agua. Okay. Yeah, that's taking a little bit longer than I thought, so just pausing this for the moment. Okay, we're just about at the end here now at the 100% line. Let's see if I can get that better in view. That's a little better. Now we can see that. And after the update, it rebooted. Got our nice little case light going. Okay. So, and we get our nice Wi-Fi back. So, what do we got next? They would like us to click the little symbol here, which is for the settings. and then calibration. And go for the vibration compensation and bed leveling. I wonder if that's a tickable thing. Oh, yes, you can do both. Ha ha ha, nice. Okay, so let's hit start. And while we're doing that, let's open the door where we can watch that. That should be pretty epic. Because we'll get to see the actual process. Okay. I'm going to hit start. Oh, those are noisy. Oh. I see what they mean about the noise. Yeah. Just get our handy dandy cleaner thing while I'm here. That's interesting seeing a Delta printer do that. This is input shaper basically. Definitely going to say that these will be skewed because of the table I have it on, so I'll probably need to redo these. And they recommend anytime you take an update, do the bed leveling and compensation again, because those get wiped whenever you do a firmware update. Okay, so it's still sitting on the compensation. I'll just show you here. Yes, I left a sticker on the front of it. I probably should take that one off. Okay, looks like it's gonna home. Okay, I don't know if, yeah, you can see them. Little red light, obviously for the end stops. Now it's homing again. It's getting ready to do bed leveling. Is that the... Okay, so that's hot and fan. Or is that the CPAP? Nope, it's not the CPAP. That is just the hot end fan. Definitely run it with the door closed. I presume what that's doing is that's heating to a preset temperature to do the bed leveling. Keep seeing with the specs. No, maybe it's just my eyes. That'll get a good clean with some glass cleaner. One thing that bugs me that I did notice is that the filament comes down from the top, so it'll hang actually inside the casing, which is kind of good, because it means that if you can find a spot to put some desiccant where it will not get in the way in the chamber, it will help. So you pre-dry your spool, but I think long term I'm going to look at Bowden tube, or Bowden tube, however you want to say it, to get it right down to the head, because there's a filament sensor just below the surface where that piece of PTFE goes in, right there above the extruder. And I think I would like that to go all the way back to my dry box, especially with the levels of humidity that I have in my area. I don't think a desiccant in the casing here. You could probably put one obviously somewhere on the sides, maybe at the front left, where it's not going to be in the way, but I think it would probably be better having the bowing. Now I can see additional camera mount spots too. I see. It's an actual contact. It is actually using the nozzle. Those motors are definitely running without silent. But that's also what's required. If you're running any kind of stealth shot, then it's going to be very silent, but you're not going to get the torque, and you're likely to get layer shift. And on something like this, you don't want that. It's not made for speed. It's stealth shot, so it's spread cycle. And considering the size of those motors, not surprised. Okay, sounds like it finished. Oh, it's fired it up again. So what is it doing now? Just watching the screen there. And there we go, it's going to do it again. Okay. Looks like the best unspooling method will be having the spool unwind off the back side facing your Z-axis stepper, or tower C, which is that furthest back one. I genuinely love the fact that this does the bed leveling with the nozzle. I'm not sure how they're doing that, but I suspect there's a pressure sensor somewhere in the tool head, which is pretty epic. It's kind of like with Frank using the tap. But this is the kind of leveling you ideally want. You don't want an offset with a delta. It adds complications. Two, three. I'm just counting the points. That's 5. That's 6. So that's going to be a 7x7 mesh. Your longest point across the middle, which is your 0 line, is how many mesh points it's going to do, because deltas, they have an S-shaped pattern kind of that it does to do the mesh. So it does one at the bottom, goes up a line, does a certain number of the mesh points with it to keep it within the circle. So what you end up with is like 1 point at the top, 1 point at the bottom, and a rectangle in the middle, and then it fills in the rest either with bicubic or Lagrange to fill in the missing points. Love the fact that this does, and you can probably see it just in the edges, that is a 3mm at least aluminium bed for the PEI sheet. That is a very good design over the previous models, because the previous were either a lattice glass with sitting on top of a 1.3mm heater. Those had a tendency to bow a little bit or bend. Okay, that looks like that's finished. Just watching these opticals. Okay, so the lights on the optical steppers, they only just dim instead of either going on or off. That's interesting. And calibration completed. Yes. Okay. Let's just have a look at that. Yeah, it did load, actually load it up. So a 60C bed and it brought it up to about 125, probably 130. That's actually decent. Okay. Well, with that, I think our next stage, according to Mr. User Guide, is to insert some filament. So pull the filament down to the center of the filament tool. The center of the filament hole is inserted into the PETFE. So basically, those little tube things there. Yeah, okay. Yeah, thought so. Okay, they don't want you to load it when it's up at the top. So what they want to do is, yeah, let's see. Settings. Okay, so they have it from the temperature menu. So let's, that one. Okay, yeah, I see. Ideally, we want to move that down according to what I'm seeing. So, Z. That is a bit odd because that it's seeing as that, and that'll be at maximum though. Let's just yeah, that's more like it. Home. And then let's go ahead and bring that down. Yeah. We ideally want to extend that, not all the way down, but just about there. So, and the reason for this is, on the tube, you can see there's some little black plastic clips that obviously keeps your tool head wire against the CPAP piping. It also has little tiny holes on it that will guide the filament to the head. So this could be one of those things of why I said I really would prefer a bowden in that regard. But let's see what it does. This has been running for a little bit on my dryer, so I think I'll go ahead and shut that down. Let's get enough fan noise in the house. Just throw that in. We'll do it their way to initially. Now, get my cutters out. Cut a nice bevel on the edge of this spool. Now for this one, I'm using some high-speed PLA in white from Sunwood. I've done some tests on this before, and I know it can go at least to 300. So that's going quieter. Okay. Oh, interesting. The temperature must be finally getting down. Interesting. Yeah, as it drops, and it's picking up just a little bit, so it's spinning up that high-speed little fan. Okay, so we take our little bolt out from earlier, slip that through here, get some filament off the edge of it. Try not to let it unspool on you, because that will make a nightmare for you. Maybe hold it on this side. There we go. Now that will go up in here, and then that goes through. Now I did already have a look around. A few community mods make a little thing to go on your spool holder that will raise that up a little bit and put a roller on it using some 608 ZZ bearings, which might be quite good to do. There's that. So that's fed down through there. That feeds down through there. Now, again, I'm going to say that I think they should have used FLsun tube, and on printables, there is definitely a printable set of replacement clips. These are actually printed, and it allows you to run a Bowden tube down to here. I think that would be a very good idea. That's my opinion. There we go. Well, let's just there we go. Now let's go back into the move menu, and we're going to move that back up. Just see how that does. I can already see that this is touching the spool, so definitely need to look into something that will hold that at a certain angle, as long as it doesn't interfere with the tension that it creates on the effector. Okay, so control temperature. Yes, so please give me 200. Not very responsive, but hey-ho. And enter. Now, once it reaches the desired temperature, we will use, and I forgot to bring that back down, I do apologize. Probably should have used the gimbal so it focuses on my hand or something. But anyway, I've set it for 200 in the control menu. And this is where we're going to try and extrude a little bit once it reaches temperature. Now, if you go to the FLsun website, you will also find that they have a newer version of the slicer than what is on the USB stick. The USB stick basically has a version of the slicer, an instruction video, and installation manual. So if you want to go buy the PDF instead and have it on your computer in the same room, great. There you go. Okay, so that's up to temperature. So I should be able to now get this to load filament. So make sure that's pushed. That feels like it's against the gear. Oh, yes. Okay, so it's telling it load fill. Okay, so it wants to do 240. Haha, that's benchy temperatures. Yep, okay. Yep, that's as far as it'll go manually. And I can see the temperature rising. Let me just mention that. Hold the filament down to the thing, wait for the filament to be extruded, then the load is finished. Oh yeah, that's a nice little splurt. Whoa! That's an insane kind of speed coming out of that. Okay, I think we can call that loaded. Yeah, okay. And that's still got a little bit of ooze, I'd say. So definitely, probably not as dry as I would have liked it. Yeah, little bit of ooze. This can go over. Sorry, I'm just gonna get this into the recycle bag over here. There we go. For the excess. As you can see, that's still oozing a little bit. So that seriously built up some pressure in that head. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm one of those. I don't necessarily like the brass brush. I feel it's very abrasive, especially on something that's hot. So a bit of paper towel, less abrasive on the head. And there's definitely still some heat going on there. PID could probably do with a little help. Okay, so looks like they have a benchy code, benchy in here. Oh, okay. So there are some locally loaded, so what the heck, let's go ahead and get some printing going on. Maybe we will get this in here. Ah. So let's go ahead and zoom this out a little bit. This way we can get to watch that beast in action. "22-minute benchy, 9-minute benchy, little vase, a cat, fan silencer. Imagine that. That's for that turbo fan at the top. Okay. And a camera jacket. Okay. Might do that one in a bit, but I think that needs to be made of something else. Especially if you have a heated chamber. What shall we go for? Lighthouse. Okay, what the heck. This is probably going to be a little bit stringy. But let's see if we can go for the 9-minute benchy. And yes, I want a time lapse. Yes, absolutely. That will be amazing. Now, before we even start, what do? Clean the bed. Oop, helps if you turn it on, don't it? Yep, need to turn that on. There we go. Little bit of. This is a window cleaner, like a glass cleaner I use, because it works really well. There we go. And I can feel the grit on that. With any luck, we'll have similar beds from ones where it does low temperature, but let's see what happens here. This is going to be insane. You can see it. It definitely made that spool jerk a little bit. It's now doing the vibration compensation. Now you can see it doing it with that going. This is definitely one that you want to put this on a very solid base. That will probably help with some of the noise, especially doing that. But you don't get power and high torque to move a tool head around doing it quiet. That just doesn't happen. Anybody who's watched any of the online speed printing videos, especially some of the Core XYs, the Deltas like this, the T1, being the T1 Pro and the S1, you know it's not a quiet process. And you add CPAP to that for a constant airflow, that turbo fan will probably be quite loud. I must admit that the fact that I saw that, noise reducer for the CPAP, that's quite interesting, because that thing says don't block it on the top. Okay, so it's finished the vibration compensation. Now it should do a nice fresh bed level. I insist on this kind of thing because little changes can happen. Let's see a bit of something on there. Well, now they do actually say if the temperature is up to 30 C, please open the front door before printing PLA in case the nozzle to be blocked. In other words, if you're printing PLA and the temperature, you know, in the room or potentially in the enclosure is going to go above 30, you might want to even put one of those little temperature hygrometers in there. You will probably overheat the hot end, which means that it's not going to cool the heat break well enough, and it is going to start pre-melting the filament in the wrong place, and it will clog up. And looking at the design that they have for this hot end, I think that's going to be a nightmare to get that to unclog if you have to do it. Now, I presume this is now heating the bed and the nozzle. And if it wasn't for the fact that I'm recording with the same phone, I could open the app and find out. But let's see if I can be clever. So I wrote down the IP address. Let's see if it'll actually connect to it. Yep, there we go. There's our bed level. No, it's not connecting to it. So I'm guessing that there's going to be additional settings that I need to do on this. That or my router has already given it a different IP. This looks like it's doing a two-part. Yeah. I wonder if that's delta calibration that it's doing, and then a bed level. That'll be very interesting to read about that. Yeah. It's just, yeah, that's a two-part bed leveling system. Very interesting. See, to me, that looks like part of delta calibration. That hot end fan is definitely loud, and for only a little 25 to 30 millimeter fan, that's a lot of noise. I think this is a daytime printer, or unless you have a workshop outside or in a room at the opposite end of the house. It's definitely going to give a props to the Down Under maker. He said, well, when I told him I was going to be doing this video, he says, welcome to the Annoy the Family Club. Right. That's interesting how it does that. Because I've done Clipper on a Delta, and even recent working on a friend's Delta, which is a much earlier model of the FLsun. But it definitely doesn't do it in this way to a degree. So it does have me very curious. again, I can't get over the fact that they actually have a 3mm bed. I'm very pleased about that. The tinkerer in me wants to pull this thing apart to see the board and all that, but I'm gonna hold off. My rule of thumb is, when you're learning a new printer that you haven't worked with before, keep it stock, keep it running. The only thing I might, like I said, change of the new stock is to, at some point, change those clips for the filament guide. And maybe put the little bearing roller up on the spool hold. See how it does, and if it really doesn't hit my expectation of what I'd like, as far as keeping the filament dry and protected, then, especially PLA, if they're telling you to keep the door open, we have a problem, at least in my area. Not everybody is disfortunate enough to have high humidity like that. There's a lot of people that don't even need dry boxes and can leave it out for ages. You can see that unspooling slightly. Okay, it has finished the bed leveling process. Now you can see how much time that adds to the print. Here we go, time to almost be impressed. Whoa! Okay, that's CPAP. That's coming from the top. I think I'm right. Yeah, that's a CPAP. That's a lot noisier than I thought it was going to be. It thinks it can do this with T20. Okay. It might do. That's about right for high-speed PLA. Although I would have probably gone for T30 on the first layer. Interesting where it parks it. X0, Y0. There's a nice purge line. That is a beautiful first layer. Oh my word. Look at that thing go. That is insane. Oh, what happened? That was an interesting little pause. What is that infill pattern? I don't think I've seen that infill pattern before. And even on my rickety TV table, it's really not moving that much as I thought it would. But it's definitely moving a bit, showing that 330 grams head around. Holy. Oh, I'm going to be testing high-speed filament like I'm going out of style with it. High-speed bridging. It's only a short distance, but Frank, you have competition, buddy. This thing is eating you alive. When you get your upgrades, this is the benchmark, buddy. Oh my word. Let's wake that up. 9 minutes when it comes to the start of the print, more likely. 600, 800 millimeters per second. Mother of Lord. FLsun, I am without words. I'm actually getting goosebumps here. I mean, look at this. I am getting goosebumps from this. That is insane kind of speed. Doing 200 on the outer parameters. Oh my word. You know, and this is a point, the slicer, when I downloaded it from the FLsun website, it looks like it's Orca. Like they took Orca slicer and customized it for the FLsun printer, which is nice. Means all the functionality I'm used to seeing. With Prusa Slicer, I'll probably be able to find in this very quickly and very easily. Oh my word. I'm still thinking a name for this bad boy. I can see at least one little layer line about halfway up, which will get yachty, like there might have been a little bit of under extrusion, but that might be because it's a pre-sliced file. Like I said, I think it probably would have been better at 230. But it's averaging 200 millimeters per second, peaking up as high as 800. And that C-cup is definitely done. And the camera should be getting a nice time lapse of that, which I'm definitely going to have to download. And I'll try and put it into the video. That's the sound of motors that are seriously torquing. I'm curious to see how long they are only just like this one. But they're not even stressing doing this kind of speed. I think I might just make my phone holder with this, because I have a feeling this will print it in a quarter of the time. Bumblebee, you're in trouble as well, buddy. You up as well. Bumblebee, if you don't know, is my little B0. B0.2 R1. So they're good up to 400, 500. Frank can pull off about 350 at the moment. But this is just, wow. Okay, I can see a little bit of problem with the porthole at the back, but not too bad. Good drinking. Considering that it is using a generic PLA for high speed, this is pretty impressive. It's definitely going to teach me a few things about hot ends, because the melt zone on this thing is enormous. so it has plenty of time to soften up that material before it gets to the nozzle. And it's still averaging between 80 and 160 on most of these. Okay, I can definitely see why people like CPAP, because the amount of cooling that must be necessary for it to do those little bits there. That material is going down hot and it's coming back around to it within under 3 seconds. And yet it's still managing it. Look at that. Look at that bridge at the back. That was a beautiful bridge. And it hit it fast. Okay, front bridge. This might be interesting to see how many other benchy types it can actually do if I get it sliced right. That is some amazing bridging. Ah, look at that! Only time I've seen printing like that is watching some of the Voron videos, and oh my word. Nice to see that they slow down a little bit for the solid infill. They've got solid infill between layers. And there it is. That's the one where most people will have it just fall over because it is literally going over the layer underneath it within seconds, or not even 1 second. And look at that, it's doing that at 800, or so it thinks, between 100 and 800. Wow! A little bit of a string, but I'm not surprised. That is just insane. Yeah, I thought that was the CPAP. That is seriously blowing some air. Yep, that's definitely, and look at that. It's using that to help cool the hot end down, as well as probably everything else. Completed? Yes. Now, let's see if that's cool enough to... Nope, not yet. Habitual pulling the purge line off of the bed. There it is. Okay. Close that up. Keep it quiet some. That is beautiful. Let's just go ahead and zoom out a little. That is actually not bad. A little bit of over extrusion there caused a little bit of splurge. Little under extrusion to a degree. But otherwise a nice smooth first layer. Bridging artifact, but not bad. Little artifact there, probably just a little bit too much on the speed. Looking good otherwise. Ah, there's a little spot. So let me get this up where we can see it. So this is the benchy it just printed. I can see there's a little bit of stringing, but literally 1 or 2 here and there, not bad overall. That's the little spot I noticed on the front. You can see the under extrusion spots and a little bit of over at the beginning on the first layer, not surprising. Couple of spots in there. where it looked like it was going just a little bit much. But overall, that is a really good benchy. Little spot there. I think with some tuning for that particular filament, that would actually get it. Little bit of over extrusion on the back there, but overall that is more than acceptable. Could have been a little bit tighter on that. That would have been nice, but that is a really good benchy. So there we are. We have our first print as well, as I promised. I hope you really enjoyed that. I'm blown away with how fast that can print. That is really insane. But there you are. That is the FLsun T1 Pro Delta printer. They say it'll go up to 1,000 millimeters per second, and after seeing that, I am not possibly surprised. I think it would really depend on the model, but if you got something that was maybe running in base mode, you know, going up just around, I bet you could easily hit it. I'm not even sure if there's a filament that could keep up with that. But yeah, that is definitely blew my mind. I have to give you guys at FLsun the credit. But anyway, thank you everybody for watching. I will do some follow-up print tests, obviously with some other filaments that I have that are made for high-speed printing. I just need to get my grips around their slicer and then see what I can make with it. So thank you for watching.